Hello, I'm Ray Jureidini, and in this presentation, I'm going to talk about competition and corruption in the recruitment of migrant labour in the GCC countries. Recruitment is based upon three levels of competition. The first being tendering for projects in the destination countries of corporations. This is where they must compete with other companies to win those project contracts. The second level of competition is between private recruitment agencies vying for the labour supply contracts. And thirdly, are the labour contracts which workers themselves compete to get the jobs in the destination countries. These three together feed what I call the culture of corruption in migrant labour recruitment. When companies tender for these projects, they want to keep the costs of the budget when they're bidding as low as possible. One of the ways is eliminating the costs of recruitment of migrant workers for the project. This reduces the tender budget and it increases the price competitiveness for those companies. The tender process itself doesn't require any transparency regarding the costs of recruitment or the labour costs generally, which I think is problematic. As a result, what's happened in the GCC countries over many decades is that workers are paying for the recruitment costs rather than the employer. With regard to the labour supply contracts, the private recruitment agencies offer employing companies lower wages, no recruitment costs, and importantly, but one issue that isn't getting enough recognition is the kickback payments in return for the labour supply contracts. These are paid, these charges are paid by the low-income migrant workers as what is often called the cost of recruitment or the cost of migration to the workers themselves. Thus, workers are competing against each other for the jobs. Workers selected are not based upon, the selection process is not based upon skills, qualification, and experience, as is the norm, but also on their ability and willingness to pay what they're being charged. And this creates a labour market distortion with regard to recruitment. The charges to workers often means that they have to take loans to pay these costs that they're being foisted upon them. And this creates a debt bondage, sometimes with very high interest rates, or the labour indebtedness, two terms that are used. And this debt can lead to contract substitution, forced labour, trafficking, or what is called modern-day slavery. That is, once workers are in debt and they arrive in the destination country, they may not receive what they were promised or what was in their original contract. And they can't leave because they're in debt and they must accept whatever income and conditions is offered to them because of that debt. What I call the structural culture of corruption in the recruitment industry is based upon the idea that in the countries of destination, employers now expect that workers will pay the cost of recruitment. And in the countries of origin, workers themselves expect that they must pay. However, there is a legislative mismatch in all of this. Laws exist that forbids employers from charging workers for recruitment or other related costs. This is the case in the labour laws of Qatar, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, and Bahrain. It's also against the International Labour Organization Private Employment Agencies Convention, Article 7. To give an example, the Qatar Labour Law, Article 33, states, "The person who is licensed to recruit workers from abroad for others shall be prohibited from doing the following: to receive from the worker any sums representing recruitment fees or expenses or any other costs." By contrast, in the countries of origin, there are laws that allow agencies to charge workers. These vary between 1, 2, and 3 months' salary for workers. But workers themselves are often charged far more than what they're allowed to be charged in their countries of origin. Now, the fraudulent kickback payments, which can be called bribery or exaction, if you assume that an average of $1,000 per worker is paid to the employer personnel in the country of destination, it aggregates to a very, very large amount of money. For example, if we take Bangladesh pre-COVID, where around 500,000 Bangladeshis were migrating abroad for work, that would amount to something like $500 million or $500 million leaving Bangladesh each year, just from the kickback bribes that are being paid to personnel in the destination countries. In 2019, we see that there were approximately 20 million low-waged migrant workers in the GCC. That, as an estimation, amounts to around $20 billion just in the kickback payments in the region. It is a very seductive amount of money. What I've already noted is the distinction between fees and charges. Often there is the idea that prospective migrant workers must pay fees. Fees suggests that these are legitimate fees. For example, fees that are related to skills training, skills testing, various document attestations, airfares, medical testing, and so on. But these are not fees, but the costs of recruitment and deployment. And these costs should be borne by the employer, who really should pay by law all of these costs, including the commission to the recruitment agency. Now, workers, of course, are not paying for fees. They are being illegally charged for the recruitment costs. That includes the kickback bribes. Workers from Asia and Africa pay far more than these costs, however, as I'll show in a moment. But importantly to note is that no government requires workers to pay for their recruitment, although they might turn a blind eye to it. What workers pay is a commercial arrangement, an arrangement between the employing company and the private recruitment agencies in countries of origin. Now, the issue of paying for work visas is something that I want to highlight is misinformation. Agencies talk about charging workers large amounts for a work visa. The idea of the work visa is seen to be legitimate because everybody has the idea and understanding that if you need a visa, it's going to cost you money. In reality, the work visa is paid for by the employer before it can even be issued. So the agency in the country of origin has no business pretending to sell it or to charge workers for it when it's already been paid by the employer. And the cost of a work visa in most Gulf states is around $82. Agencies often charge thousands of dollars, pretending that is the cost of the work visa. And why do workers pay different amounts? We actually can't predict what workers will pay because there's information that we just don't know. For example, we don't know whether the employers will pay all, part, or none of the recruitment costs. We don't know whether private recruitment agencies charge workers an amount based upon what the employer is willing or not willing to pay. Thirdly, the presence and the level of the kickback payments or bribes and the payment of expenses to personnel of the employing companies at the destination. We also don't know how much worker payments are used to pay various local officials in the origin countries. We know that there is bribery and corruption that occurs there. And lastly, we don't know how much indirect corrupt payments can be made by colluding with the employers to illegally deduct recruitment fees and costs from workers' wages, which may not be picked up by the wage protection systems in the GCC countries. To conclude, as recruitment agents are aware that charging workers is wrong, so it should be with employers and workers themselves. Serious penalties should result from charging workers, not only the reimbursements to the workers, which does occur, and fines, but also public prosecution, public shaming, trade boycotts, frozen bank accounts, and the like. There needs to be serious penalties for these corrupt practices. And perhaps only then will the culture of corruption begin to wane and a level, ethical playing field be developed. Here is a poster that was put up during an ethical recruitment drive by QDVC of Qatar some years ago when they were recruiting from India and Bangladesh. And they put the poster up that made it very clear that no money will be paid by the workers for their recruitment to Qatar. And that was a very successful, very deliberate process of ethical and proper recruitment practice. Thank you very much. I hope that was helpful.